Good Friday morning. Hope your week went great. Hope you're excited for the weekend. I know there's a lot of cool things happening for us, and we're super excited for the weekend. So, with that said, let's hop right into it. We're going to talk about Levi the tax collector. Now, if you read the Gospel of Matthew, you'll see that he's not called Levi, but right off the bat, he's called Matthew. But in the book of Mark and in the book of Luke, he starts out as Levi and his name is later changed to Matthew. So we'll kind of go over why that happened. So Levi being called to become a disciple or to become a follower of Jesus is talked about in the book of Matthew, book of Mark, and book of Luke. So we get to see Matthew's calling from three different perspectives. I'll kind of use Levi and Matthew interchangeably for this first part. But we're going to start in Luke chapter 5, verse 27. It says, "And after these things, Jesus went forth and saw a publican named Levi sitting at the receipt of custom, and he said unto him, Follow me." So take note that in Luke's gospel, Luke calls him Levi. And now just to kind of give you a little more background on Levi being a publican, tax collectors were absolutely not liked around this time period because you have the Romans who were over the Jews. And what was happening is you would have Jewish people who would go work for the Romans as tax collectors. And these Jewish tax collectors, when they would collect taxes from their own Jewish people, they often would steal a bunch of extra money along with this. So tax collectors were viewed very low. They were robbers, they were stealers, they took advantage of people. And this is who Jesus is calling to become a follower. So in Luke, he's called Levi. Now we're going to go to the book of Mark. Mark chapter 2, verse 13. "And Jesus went forth again by the seaside, and all the multitude resorted unto him, and he taught them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the receipt of custom, and said unto him, Follow me. And Levi arose and followed him." So in the book of Luke, he's called Levi. In the book of Mark, he's called Levi. Now we're going to go to the book of Matthew. And now, so Matthew wrote his own gospel. The book of Matthew means that Matthew is the author of this gospel book. And now, so what's happening here is Matthew is recalling his own conversion. He's recalling the event of he himself being called to become a follower of Jesus. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to, Matthew chapter 9, verse 9. It says, "And as Jesus passed forth from thence, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the receipt of custom, and he said unto him, Follow me. And Matthew arose and followed him." So in Luke, it's Levi. In Mark, his name is Levi. But in Matthew, he recalls it as Matthew. And the reason why this is because Luke and Mark, they're observing all of this happening from a third-person perspective. They're seeing Levi be called to become a follower. But Matthew, because he's recalling his own experience being called to be a follower, Matthew realizes that when Jesus is calling Levi, his old name, when Jesus is calling Levi to become a follower, Jesus is calling him into a new identity. He's calling him to drop the identity of Levi and take up the identity of Matthew, which means Jehovah's gift, God's gift. And remember, this is a publican, a tax collector, someone who's wicked and someone who is not viewed highly upon. This kind of person gets the name of God's gift. And this is awesome because we know that when you become a Christian, your old nature was put to death and you were resurrected with Jesus into a new nature. And so the same way, when Levi became Matthew, Levi was gone. Everything that was a tax collector, sinner, everything of that nature was gone. And now he put on a new identity of Matthew, God's gift, disciple of Jesus, follower of Jesus, a new identity. And so for each one of us who is now a born-again Christian, realize that your old nature does not exist. Who you were pre-Christian, as far as God's concerned, does not exist. He does not remember sin. When you accept Jesus as your Savior, you're given a clean slate. Past, present, future sins are all forgiven. Complete new nature. You now have the Spirit of God residing in you. And that's a really cool thing to get from Matthew. Levi was in Reseda Custom, and Levi was left at the Reseda Custom. And when Matthew went to follow Jesus, he followed him as Matthew, not as Levi. So it's a good lesson for all of us to remember that the old nature is dead and that we all have a new nature with the Spirit of God living on the inside of us. So with that, pray you all have a great weekend. Pray it's all good for you, and I'll see you back on Monday.